I'm recording from now, so can you repeat that?
Yeah, hi everybody. Well, Hira and I are gonna venture on this journey into the new earth and bliss. And today particularly, we're going to talk about how to deal with obstacles and anger and wrath and troubles that come along as you start to open to the bliss. Because it's, I think we both agree, no matter what, because we both dealt with lots and lots of issues and trauma and all kinds of challenges in our lives, you know, growing up, coming through teenage years, whatever it is. All of you out there have got stuff that's come up that you've had to deal with. So what happens as you step into this new earth, you step into bliss? How do you step into bliss and at the same time embrace anger, wrath, and all the kind of feelings that you have when you see what's going on around you? And it's tough sometimes, tough to accept. So I'm going to pass back to you for first of all, any stories of wrath, any stories of ways that we can help each other to deal with things that we're not so comfortable with, looking out as we step into the bliss of the new earth and we're in this flow and something will come up to kind of block the way, or a person or relationships or things, and it feels sticky and difficult. And of course, that brings up a lot of emotion. The wrathful goddess or deity in us comes up and she shows her face and she says, you're not going to just avoid this. You've got to work with it. You've got to be in that tough space and you've got to embrace it in a way that actually makes sense. So I'm just wondering, what sort of light would you shine on that? Because that's such a big question for so many people who are stepping into this bliss.
Yeah, so especially when you work with the wrathfulness, the wrathfulness is like it really has to do with the you know, all the chakras, also, you know, the heart and, you know, the third eye, but it usually has also a lot to do with the lower chakras, not lower as lower, but, you know, like the more dense chakras, the womb, the genitals, the whole, you know, the whole area, the belly, the fire, the vitality, you know, everything. So what has happened to us, like in societies, that we have repressed and suppressed not only our wrathfulness but also our sexuality, you know, directly linked to it, connected to it, in my own experience. And now, and you know, the fear mongering and, you know, all these things that are, you know, and the control and everything, like the whole thing is just kind of collapsing. Like also, I think this year in Paris, bomb, there's going to be one event, one day, bomb, like the whole thing, just nobody, we're not going for the fear anymore. We're just like some wrathfulness is going to come out and say, I'm done with this. Like, I'm done with this whole, you know, the way that it's like all just tied in, and, you know, whatever. So like for me, what I've like, I'm training this, like I'm literally training this through my practices. And what I've noticed is that when the wrathfulness comes out as a personal thing, that's when I go wrong or astray, or, you know, if you can call it wrong, that's when it becomes destructive. But when I use it as like a power coming through me, you could say, that it doesn't even need to be a wrathful deity like in the Tibetan traditions, or, you know, even in the Egyptian traditions, Sekhmet, like all these wrathful powers of gods and goddesses. It doesn't even have to be that way. They can also be just life, just streaming through you, that this moment you can be wrathful, but it's not personal. It's not like I'm going to be personally angry with this person or the situation or something. It's just like that moment is necessary that somebody stands up, somebody tells the truth. I mean, the truth is always, you know, objective and so subjective in that sense, but that somebody just says, okay, that's enough, you know, and then kind of like stands up. And then the next moment, this person like me can take care of a child and be super sweet and be the mother, and, you know, all these things. So it's like wrathfulness doesn't mean something doesn't have to be something, but it can be very constructive, as long as what I've found is as it's not personal. So, and of course, I'm very fortunate. I'm very, very fortunate. I've had teachers. I have a husband who can hold, like I have a Zen master as a husband. So, and teachers, amazing teachers, like, so, so I'm lucky that they have held that space for me, and they have held that that safe container, you could say, in which I can express that wrathfulness and even attack in that sense. But because they know me, or they know my intentions on my heart, they allow it. They get a few punches here and there, definitely. But these are strong, strong people, so they can handle it. So I'm very lucky. But then when I look out in the world and I see people that are going to have to deal with this, or are going to have to stand in their wrathfulness, I'm like, whoa, and you and me, we are trained. So of course, we can guide them. We both do private sessions and we give workshops, and I can't wait for the workshops that we're going to give together. I really can't wait, because I'm sure some of these themes will be, like linked into it. But can you imagine somebody that is not trained, and just like this power comes through them, then or they're going to use it for their own benefit, which is fine. But if you poisonous dragons, like in the Taoist tradition, we call it poisonous dragons, like they some spiritual energy comes up, but they use it for their own, instead of for the greater good. So I'm looking around, I'm like, okay, I hope this will not be like one big world with poisonous dragons everywhere, I'm like, okay, like, can somebody, guide this?
I love it. I love it. I love, when you were speaking, you reminded me of a time, some years ago, I went through a very difficult situation, and I was basically meditating in a cave for 6 months. And what I did, I went out on nature retreats by myself, and I called on that, because you particularly said about the power. This is not directed at a person. You are not directing your anger out. You learn to actually channel, and through guidance, especially with guidance in some of these ancient practices, you recognize that there are, those both sides of deities. There is the peaceful, protective part, and there's also the wrathful, very, very angry, the part that expresses that, but knows how to express it safely. So I used to go out in nature and way out in the, take a retreat for 3 days where there was nobody around, right out in the forest, and there was just me, the birds, and the trees. And I used to go wild, like they often speak about in a lot of these traditions, where you do a type of retreat where you express all aspects of yourself safely, freely. So every part of yourself can. So still remember this very cathartic and very empowered, wrathful deity that just emerged out of me and took, tree trunks and swung them around and smashed them over rivers and rocks. And I felt like it was fantastic. And it was also extremely healing, because, with great gratitude to Mother Earth for all her resources that are there, when we actually find that retreat place that we can express the wrathful deity within, in the safety and of that, then Mother Earth embraces us. And this speaks to the new Earth and Bliss. She actually starts to embrace all of those energies, because we call it wrath and we call it anger, but when it's expressed in a very caring and loving and protective environment, it can be just as equally releasing and liberating. So I'm very present to that.
Yeah, and it's also, that's the healing, right? It's like there's so much power there, raw power, in which we can change the world, and we can change ourselves. So if we're not tapping into that, we're just like, half human, you would say, like we're just in our heads, or just in our heads and our hearts. But we're not breathing deep down into the belly, where that fire is and where that vitality is, and we're just cut off from it. And this is like in the West, like many, it's like we become robots, like in an automatic society where, everything is about politeness and everything. I've never had that. Like, I've never, maybe I went a bit too astray on the other side, where, like I couldn't embody politeness, which now I've, I've been educated more, so I can be and polite and, you know, non-polite. But it's like, yeah, are you able to stand in your power and say, this is how I want to live? Because this is what the new earth is about. Like, we have to write our own scripts. We have to, and it takes a very powerful, strong individual nowadays, you know, to kind of step out of that, whatever society itself is sick. I mean, you know, I'm sorry to say it like that, but society itself is built on ego. You know, it's just about more. It's about personal development. It's about, you know, all these things, and when you look at it, it's like I mean, the problems we're dealing with today are just outrageously big, and so that, but there is a way out of it if we stand strong in our own power. And we need maybe wrathfulness is maybe not the right word. I would say fierceness. We need fierceness for that. We need to stand and say enough, you know, like, just let's come together like we do, you know, and create the new earth.
Absolutely. When you said that our problems are very big, I immediately went to two aspects of that fierceness, Mahakala and Kali. Now, because I've got a very deep, lasting, long relationship with both of them. Now, when you think of them, they're pretty frightening. If people are, you know, not, if you haven't worked with Mahakala or Kali before, they represent the ultimate destructive power. But equally, they are unbound. I mean, they're not bound by rules, regulations. They have the power to dissolve even time and space into themselves. So they exist in terms of that. They can dissolve everything the big problems that we see, that equally vast, boundless energy that is Kali, for example, can actually dissolve all of that. So when you were speaking, I think that sometimes, you know, this is so meaningful in terms of helping people to deal with what, you know, those obstacles and difficulties that arise as the bliss of the new earth unfolds, because we're really into, as humanity, there's so many of us that are absolutely rooted together in working for the bliss of the new earth, and yet we still see the same poverty, the same atrocities, the same inhumanities expressed against our fellow human beings. And there's a lot of anger that comes up, and almost to the point where, as you said, the problem can seem so big that we might feel powerless. And this is where, or helpless. And this is where the boundless power and the power to dissolve of Kali or Mahakala is actually representing us. It's representing our boundless power. We're not separate from those fierce deities. We actually become them. We become that power to dissolve any obstacle, no matter how big. And that is when it gets really exciting. It really kind of, when you start to feel that power surge through you, you realize, oh, if I feel this big and this vast and this capable of channeling, opening to that energy of dissolution, then think of what we can do together. I mean, think of just the two of us in this space, and think of everybody listening who's got exactly the same opportunity. If we all join together, that is an absolutely indestructible and unstoppable power. So I'm really present to, once you start to tap into that energy, you start to actually connect with the dissolution of the entire universe. You recognize that as a collective, we are literally unstoppable when we get all our hearts flowing in that one direction, you know, which brings us back to the bliss of the new earth. Once we're all flowing there, once we've actually truly recognized that, in fact, the polarities of the bliss and the fierceness are actually exactly the same. They're the same energies flowing through. They're like the yin and yang of the universe flowing through us in its limitlessness. So I love what you've said. It's just so deep and empowering for everybody listening, because ultimately that's what we want to touch. We want to touch both polarities and know that we're just as capable of holding fullness as emptiness. We're just as capable of holding everything as nothing. And that is a very, you know, deep and profound realization. And then then all your actions come from that space. They actually come from the space where you actually recognize you're capable of dissolving everything just as much as creating everything. And that is a very profound insight.
Yeah. Yes, I personally speaking, I was laughing at this week because I'm part of this community, you could say, of about 5,000 women in Holland, where we work directly in the core of what we believe is the problem in society, which we say is directed to our sexuality. So it can become constructive or destructive, and how do you, and so we are, I'm a coach of that now, like I became that in December. So I'm going to actually work with it, teach it, and, also privately work with people. And it's the method that we also talked about, like the Mantak Chia, but it's a little bit different in the sense of, but it's the same. It's like you breathe in your sexual energy, you collect it in the sexual center, then you bring it up to the back through the Ming Meng, the fire, and then you create basically medicine in your brain, and then down you breathe it down into the belly. So
it's like the orbital breath, right? That,
exactly,
like the
microcosmic orbit.
Microcosmic orbit, yeah.
Exactly.
That's a wonderful practice.
It's an amazing practice. And then now I'm learning how to have this pearl, from the deepest depth of the belly. Like you have this pearl, and then you breathe it, also into the orbit. And I was smiling because I was looking at this lineage I'm working with is called Naidan Kung lineage. It's a dragon lineage, and the Kunlun Mountains. So I was looking at Google Maps, and I was like, okay, so here's the Kunlun Mountains, where I have this 20,000-year-old or, very ancient lineage that I'm, now a teacher for. And then you have just next to it, Mount Kailash, right? Yungdrung, the energetic Yungdrung Mountains, where the Bön is coming from, the Bön Buddhist. So you have these two lineages, 20,000-year-old, very close to each other.
Very close.
Like, the mountains are just, I mean, it's hilarious how close, but it couldn't be, in some ways, it couldn't be more opposite. Like, but I'm bringing these lineages within myself and bringing that out, into the world, in that sense of like, what do you do with that? What do you do with all these powers? Like, are you going to just wait? I'm getting somewhere. So what I thought was amazing was that they have a lot of similarities, exactly with what you were talking about, right? They have this similarity of understanding that, a Taoist will say, embracing the hate and the love. When you say you love someone, maybe 10 seconds later, like you want to kiss somebody, maybe 10 seconds later, you hate someone because you're not getting the kiss or whatever, it's still dualistic. So, but in the Taoistic tradition, we say, embrace both the love and the hate. And then, some other force will come out, and the magic, the real love or whatever, true love. Anyway, I'm trying to get to, in the sense of, if a Taoist would look at for example, a tumor practitioner that is working with the central channel that we talked about in our first Bliss rise, that they can go to my YouTube channel and get more information about how we were talking about Tumo and Bliss and all this, then the Taoist will think, okay, they are practicing for their death, because the Taoist is not using the central channel, will only use the central channel, and ecstatic bliss will only use that for their death. So that, okay, I'm ready to die, then they stop their heart and they will go and they will use the central channel. But for the rest, it's always the microcosmic orbit. It's much more safe in that sense, working with the body. So they couldn't be more, but then when a tumor practitioner is looking at a Taoist, will be like, oh, what's that Bain meditation? What's this? But they're actually, breathing that, that pearl, like they're very subtle, all amazing, So they couldn't be more opposite, but they also, like, in many, many different ways, like the effortless, the letting the energy come through and just being the wrathful, and then the peaceful, and all these things are just, and it's amazing how. So what I'm trying to say is that there's so much out there so many ancient wisdoms that are spreading their knowledge that were so secret before, and that a lot of people are picking up. Like, this is a movement in Holland. 5,000 women, like already 25,000 women have done that course. Now the men are coming in, so they're like, there's this base of women. And so in so many ways, in so many, like, we can actually change the reality very fast. We really, this new earth is already here, it's already done, but a lot of people are also reproducing 3D or because of their patterns. So how can you break these patterns? Sometimes you need wrathful energy, because this is our theme, right? Bliss and wrathful. So you can use the bliss, of course, but if there's no bliss, use the wrathfulness. It doesn't matter what you're going to use, as long as you just, if you need to break the patterns, break the patterns. If you need to just be sweet and gentle and beautiful and, all this with yourself to break the pattern, do that. There's
absolutely. Absolutely. When you were speaking about the Taoist, and the Tummo, because I've practiced both, for many years, and I've practiced Kriya, and
that's why Kriya, I love you so much out there. It's like, whenever I throw it to you, you're like, done that,
Well, and what I'm especially, for those of you listening, if you have practiced these, and Kriya yoga, which goes up and down, which has a certain way of breathing up and down the spine, and Tummo, which has a certain way of breathing into the belly and up the spine, and then the Taoist microcosmic orbit, which breathes up and over. I was contemplating this the other day, because when I was first brought up in mystical Christianity, one of the original prayers that my Carmelite godmother taught me was to bring the energy of the Virgin Mary and connect with Jesus. Basically it's deeply devotional energy that you're bringing up your spine. You're bringing like this prayerful attitude, this beautiful. And actually, as I'm speaking to you, there are all these blue lights appearing in my room. So obviously the angels are really enjoying our conversation, because they always appear like that. And so, and what she would do was to speak to me about the protection of the angels. You draw the energy up. Then you've got the angels that exist in four, Oriel, Gabriel, Raphael, Michael around you. So you're breathing in, you're actually doing a microcosmic orbit in exactly the same. Breathing up this devotion, breathing out to the angel, then breathing up this devotion, breathing out to the angel on another side, and then breathing, so she used to talk to me about, when I was very little, about how I was protected by this. And I've always felt that feels so similar to doing a microcosmic or orbital Taoist practice, which I'd also done for many years. So that power of, bringing the pearl up, because as you know, I prayed in front of Guanyin statue, and a real pearl came out of her heart when I was just simply devoted to the liberation of all people on the planet. So I always think, if you actually, whatever practice you're doing, whether you're doing Taoist practices or Kriya yoga or Christian mystical practices or Islamic prayers, or whether you're speaking to the power of Tummo or whatever, if you're doing it with a deeply devotional energy to God, to light, to source, whatever that name you want to feel into, if you're dedicating every moment, not to do it for yourself, but you're actually really dedicating it to the new earth and to the bliss of the new earth and the collective bliss of the new earth, then something magical happens. The incredible power of devotion and compassion is in every moment of your practice, whether you're doing Tummo or whether you're doing the Chinese Taoist practices, or whether you're doing a prayer in any great religious tradition. If you're actually dedicating that constantly for the benefit of others, then you are actually reaching out collectively to all of us, and nothing is ever kept for yourself. And in a sense, that gratitude and devotion actually frees you from all identity. You're suddenly no longer the person that's I'm trying to achieve enlightenment because I want it for myself, because I want a Kundalini experience. Instead of that, you're actually dedicating every moment of your practice for the benefit of others. And that activates bodhicitta, it activates the whole awakened compassion, it awakens love. And it's such a beautiful reminder that, you know, every step that the pearl comes up your spine, if you're doing that particular practice, that you're actually doing it because it's a gift to God, to every human being, to light, to whatever, however you want to call that source of all that is. And that it's when I think into that power, of the simple power of dedicating every moment of your practice to the bliss of the new earth, then, like you said, we're in it already. It's already here.
Beautiful. I find some resistance there, which is, you know, that's why I love our
I like resistance. I've always,
yeah.
that's why we.
Okay, let me explain my resistance.
Oh, it already feels
You
good.
know.
Already feels like Kali's coming out. This is what I love.
Yeah. Because there's something about this kind of like devotion and offering it up to the others. And I completely, you know, I'm Bodhicitta, and I completely feel that as a truth. But there's something going on that we need to kind of detach from it, you could say, which is like this doesn't sound. I need to go somewhere, so I need to kind of say some things, and then we'll get to that point. But it's like, let's say it like this. There's a split in the human collective. Okay, there's, you know, energetically it was in 2012. Now we're going into, we have now, since 2020, it's more of a material split. So the human collective has split. I mean, all the conflicts we've had the last years is all clear. So we have what you could call the light-dark paradigm, and we have the light paradigm. So the new earth really is the light paradigm. It doesn't even need the yin-yang symbol of the Taoist or anything. It doesn't need religion, doesn't need anything, doesn't need devotion, doesn't need anything. It just is light. It's just, and it's so new that we don't really know what it is, because it's so new that most of the way that we think and most of the things that are happening in our lives, that patterns are still locked into the light, even the light-dark paradigm, even the words we're using, the whole thing is like, it's still. So the new earth is split, you know, of the human collective. What I've noticed is that a lot of us, like the ones that have chosen, because the choice is already done. You know, it's like, it's no use saying, oh, this or that, or you shouldn't, blah, blah. It's like, this is done. And if people want to talk to me about these things, they can come directly one-on-one and we'll have a conversation. But for the rest, I'm like done with trying to convince others to choose the new earth. It's clear. Like they have chosen it, yes or no. And those I work with. I don't go back into trying to change that split, because it's already done. And it's a higher self choice. So now the energies of the new earth are like, a lot of us light workers are going to actually join prayer groups, or join these relations, or join these light-dark paradigm that are already in place since 20,000s of years. Even like what I just told you, like I'm combining these also in my inner world, but I'm taking things out and I'm leaving other stuff out. I'm just taking what is necessary in that moment to just bloom and have that, you know, new earth unfolding from within me, from my whole being. So it's like what I'm trying to get at is that this split, like let's say the prayer groups. So let's say, because you were talking just about Mary Magdalene and Mary and the devotion and everything and the angels, you know. So let's say a Christian goes into a Buddhist group, for example, in the prayer groups, or a Buddhist goes into the Christian, or a Muslim, or, you know, all these things. What is happening is that these light workers that have chosen the new earth, they are going to join these prayer groups more and more, because this year is going to be amazing. Like so many groups, so many prayers, so many people coming together for actually. So
Agreed.
for us, yeah, right. So for us, it's not like, I'm even getting the chills and everything. For us, it's not about.
Me too.
Yeah, it's like, okay, it's a confirmation. It is happening. Okay, amazing. But but what the thing is that when I, for example, I joined these groups, I had to go over my own righteousness, my own religion, and saying this is new earth and I don't need to do all this anymore, blah, blah, blah. Now that I'm over that, and I'm like, I'm just here to support everyone in their choice, meaning I'm here, I'm just here, I'm in the prayer group. If they say to me, yeah, but the method is this, and you have to use this method, and you have to do that. If a Christian is trying to explain what's Jesus to a Buddhist, or a Buddhist is trying to explain what's a deity to a Christian, it doesn't matter anymore. It's just like, I literally can say, thank you, you know, I thank you very much. But all I need to do, basically, and these light workers, all we need to be, the new earthers, is just be there. Just because when we are there, without even using the method, or without even, you know, being part of that community, this community, we just go boom, 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 like to all the communities, and we tip the balance. That's all. It's not like I'm there to help them. Yes, I'm there to support their choice. You know, I'm not there to tell them like this and that, this is what I'm seeing. No, it's not about that. Like if they want to know, you come privately and I'll tell you what I see. But it's not about it. It's like being there, and not the method or whatever, or the devotion even, or all these things, or even the bodhicitta, even like doing it for all beings. In a way, I'm not doing it for all beings, because all beings have chosen a different timeline that I actually want to engage in. I don't want to engage in it, but I'm here to support your choice for sure. But it doesn't mean that I'm engaging in the light dark, or whatever we call it, whatever names we use. So it's very much like, I don't know if I'm making sense here, but it's very much about just being, and by our being and joining these groups, not necessarily being part of what they're doing, but being here and supporting that with our hearts open, and just say, wow, you know, just I'm here to support it. That's how we tip the balance. So it's not
Totally. No, you're making complete sense. So in a sense, there's no resistance whatsoever, because your own definition of being open-hearted is exactly the same as my definition of what I'd call real devotion. Because when you're really being open-hearted, so I'm not, yeah, exactly. There's no resistance whatsoever, because in fact, our definitions, if you want to call them that, meet each other. Because what we're both talking about is simply being, regardless of religion, regardless of tradition, regardless of practice, regardless of names or labels. We're talking about simply being open-hearted for all. That's exactly what that to me is actually what devotion is. Devotion is being open-hearted for all. You're not devoted towards a particular cause or towards a particular thing. You actually recognize all as being within their open heart. Yeah, so there's very it's called zero resistance.
Yeah.
We have zero resistance to where we're both coming from, because that exactly. So if we want to define, you know, devotion, dedication as actually being open-hearted for any situation. So I totally hear you, because I think that's what's, you know, in many ways, many of the traditions, which I also love because I'm steeped in them and I've studied so many of all of the different traditions, is that once you see that, you see, well, actually, they're all practicing the same thing. They're all being open-hearted for each other. And then where the names and labels can actually divide, that's no longer necessary. That is the old earth. That the old earth was where we said, well, only so-and-so can make this, and only so-and-so people can do this. Actually, this is open to everybody. And it's that open-heartedness that is really going to unite our planet. A little bit like the Dalai Lama saying our true religion is kindness. It just comes back to really simple being and open-heartedness. Those, if you want to put really simple words on it, that's
you know, and also discernment, obviously, because it is easy to kind of like lose yourself into certain energies or whatever. So it does need, like, you know, some sort of very clear. There is no cost, but there is also, yes, there is a cost. Like you have to stand in your own power, like in that sense. So I was thinking about that open-heartedness because I had a conversation with my husband yesterday about like, the fact that somehow I've always held my father and the pain and the attachment of my father in my heart. And he just very simply, very sweetly said, I wish for you, you can find peace, you know, or with your father. And that because you somehow didn't find that peace with your father, you kind of hold that space and nobody else can enter. not even your husband, or, you know, like it's always this place where, and I really have been reflecting a lot on that. Like, what would make me happy? You know, what makes you happy? Like, this is such an important question to reflect on. Not just only like, oh, this activity or that activity. What really makes us happy? You know, and then I was really looking into the peace. You know, and then I really realized, like, actually, even happiness still takes energy. Even suffering still takes energy, but peace doesn't take any energy, because that's our natural state.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, what would really make me happy? It's peace. You know, it's not like I'm not trying to go out and get something, or even inner, you know, trying to get to a state of enlightenment, or you know, all these things. It's just like, hey, if I can just, in this moment, I can just breathe, you know, in my heart, and just have my heart open, like, and feel that peace with my father, in my case, or with your life, or with what anybody is in conflict with. If you can just let the conflict be, but then somehow feel the peace within that conflict, feel the peace within the war, feel the peace within everything that is happening in the world, that would make me happy, without any energy, needing to put energy into trying to strive happiness or enlightenment or bliss or new earth or whatever. Then it's just going to, right? It's just, then you're just in an open heart and just, you know, and one person like that is in full peace and the heart is open, I believe is as powerful as a million who are not, you know. So then the new earth will just unfold. You don't even need to be part of anything or anyway. You could just sit comfortably in your home and just go, you know.
You're so right. You know, you reminded me when your husband and wife. I've had exactly the same discussions with my wife about, because she's such a dear, wonderful person, and she has had a real issue with her mum for a long time. And we quite often, you put it perfectly. When you consider some of the issues that you've got, if you're listening to us and you're thinking, how do I deal with this issue? Consider that you often keep those issues for yourself separate. You kind of think, oh, it's only my issue, or it's, you know, and the actual opportunity to share and to embrace those issues. So I just sat down with her and got her to keep sharing with me, keep allowing somebody else to, you know, it's not really taking a burden, but it's just sharing the energy of that, and actually knowing that we're, like you said, opening our hearts to each other, holding space for each other. And that, when she realized she didn't have to keep that separate, because she had kept it separate for a long time, it was quite an aha for her. It allowed her to make peace with her mum. And that was because she was no longer keeping it for, oh, this is something I've got to battle with alone. You don't. There's always people like the two of us, and friends that are just like us, who are friends for you, that are listening, that can actually hold space for you. That if you dare to share, it can be an extremely, you know, revealing and liberating power. Sometimes, you know, when I'm just going to our anger or obstacles or issues, you know, that's often what I recommend my friends and people I guide or counsel to do. And that is just if you've got a big issues, like maybe dealing with something like your dad or your mum, or some other really challenging, because the closeness can make it really challenging. I used to just ask people to bring up just a little bit of, instead of trying to deal with the whole thing yourself, just bring up some not so difficult situation, allow it to arise in your awareness, and just bring a sense of kindness or compassion to that inside yourself. Just now and then. It's such a simple exercise or practice to do. You just be gentle, just exactly like you said, just simply rest back and be, and bring that situation, maybe with your dad or your mum or a friend or somebody that you've had a real conflict with, bring something that's not so difficult, maybe a little less stressful than that. Something that it still might involve your mum, but it might be just a little argument that you had with your dad or your mum over the dishes or something, and just bring that in and feel what that's like to hold that. So when you start with small things, you take the little steps, then in fact what's happening is that gentle being, that gentle open-heartedness, is actually being present and being aware and allowing that energy, those little difficult obstacles, just to come up a little bit at a time. So it's like baby steps. You just kind of take a little time out each day to just go, oh, okay, I'll bring a little love and kindness and open-heartedness to that. And that can make all the difference. It can just slowly unravel it in the very tiniest ways. But in fact, your heart starts to gain real strength. That open-heartedness, that quality of open-heartedness. By bringing it to really small things, then your open-heartedness takes small steps with you.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, I know you have to go, so we won't make it long anymore. But I just want to add, because I just felt. Basically, this week I was with 350 people from Holland in a challenge. We called it a challenge, to face our stress and then to turn it into what the Taoists call IForce. So it was very interesting because the 4 obstacles were described. So the first obstacle is stress. Like so many people, and also me and my system, you know, nervous system, everything, it's overstimulated all the time, hyper arousal all the time. And so now I'm reprogramming like very deep layers, like absolutely deep layers. And it's amazing because I started it and then all of a sudden I had 350 people doing it with me. You know, we were all in the Telegram group and everybody was saying, oh my God, I just did this meditation because we had to leave. Where's the stress? Where are stress factors, you know? And then all of a sudden this woman says, my God, I went through this meditation. Everything stresses me out. Everything, every thought, every inner thought, every idea, every outer, I feel the pressure from outer, I feel the pressure coming from inner, I feel everything stresses me. And, you know, and everybody was like, oh my God, you know, so it was really interesting because it was just happening in the moment that I was really looking at all of this. And so the first obstacle is stress. And then we also had, of course, the solution to that, which is going in the IForce. So this could be something that anybody can do. It's very simple. It's just like you make soft eyes. Really, this is the step. If your eyes are soft, then you cannot be in stress because you're producing. Yeah, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's 4 steps. So the first is soft eyes. Second is like inner smile. So it really goes into pointy ears, like a big smile, like not physically, but what you do is you connect to the Shen, you know, the silence. So you connect through, but basically what you're saying is what I see is safe. What I hear is safe, you know, and then you go into your heart, you connect to someone there. And then you go into your belly and you start to breathe into the belly. So it's 4 steps. Then you go into this IForce. So basically, like one of the most important parts of that is just soft eyes. It's like, can you look at yourself with soft eyes? Can you look at this situation with soft eyes? Can you look at the other person that you think you're in conflict with or whatever? Can you look at them with soft eyes? And then slowly, everything has changed. So after 1 week, only 1 week with 350 other people, in an event which was free even, it was just like, you know, I feel I'm fundamentally changing, fundamentally reprogramming, and I'm fortunate, of course, I'm lucky, I can actually dedicate a lot of my time for it because I'm in yin. I'm in my yin period. You know, men are loading up or charging energy in the summer, you know, by doing activities and going up mountains and climbing and doing all this. And women, we charge, or let's say without gender, you know, just the feminine body charges in the winter by not doing anything. She goes into the dream power of the earth, you know, she just goes like, poof, you know, there's like all the windows go closed, and she should do that for a month.
Yeah,
she should
totally.
be like, poof, you know, like in that dream earth. And the men are more like sunlight and light and enlightenment and everything, but we're like, poof, you know, it's like very dark. So I'm lucky because I can just be in yin. You know, my husband's like, okay, she's in yin, okay. I'll take care of things.
I love that. You know, my entire astrology chart is in yin. It's all under the horizon in the darkness.
Oh, wow.
It's actually in the cave. So yeah, when you were talking about that, I'm just so present to the power of, like you said, the light, and when the light is there and when the dark is there. It's like you want to truly honor that. And I truly honor the womb. I call it my womb phase, that I live most of the time in that. I'd be quite happy in that. That's always where I used to go, was into the cave. So yeah, that's a pretty potent, just before we do finish, because it just touched some part when you were talking about, soft eyes and so with Kevin Shaninger, he and I run Raising Our Vibration with, and we've been doing these talks for humanities team, and we, like yourself, we had close to a couple of hundred people that were there in the call, and we do them through their program. So it's a Neil Donald Walsh platform, and anyway, it's a beautiful platform to be on. And one of the things that we teach is about we teach the Buddha smile, just like being a soft smile, soft eyes, soft smile, soft feeling in every cell, and then the softness in the hand, the openness in the hands, and the openness in the feet. So we start with the feet, ground in the feet, and then open the hands, and then open into the soft face, smile, eyes that flows down and into the heart, the open-heartedness, and then into the belly, and then the belly. So we're doing the same. And that is such a deep presence from which to live, because then you're living in the, like you said, in the eye power. So it's like, I just love the way we kind of segue into, it's like we're playing the same, these little orchestras in different areas of the world. I'm in Japan, and you're in Europe, and Kevin's in America, but we're all actually playing the same harmonies. And that's what I absolutely love. It's so deeply enriching.
Yeah. So thank you all there. Thank you, Stephen.
All right, thank you, dear. It's always gorgeous. I need to give you zillions of air hugs and kisses and joy, and the same for everybody that's listening, because it's always amazingly wonderful. We cover the whole world in a few little strides, just in this time together. So what a rich nectar of wisdom that you share, that we all share, and that everybody listening is sharing. So I hope everybody's picked up something really blissful and also fierce.
Yeah. Nice combination. Yeah, beautiful.